I've spent anywhere from 1 week to several months a year at my home in Bogota, Colombia, a place that many people feel can't possibly be safe. But today I'm going to tell you why I feel safe when I'm living in Colombia. We're going to talk about my personal experiences. We're going to talk a little bit about statistics, and then we're going to talk about some of the common misconceptions, and I'm going to respond to those. Why I feel safe in Bogota is simply my own experiences. I have about a decade of experience being there to judge off of, and I think there's a couple reasons for that. I live in a nice neighborhood. I take basic precautions. One of the things that people will say is, well, that's nice for you to live in a nice neighborhood. No matter where I go in the world, no matter where I would ever live in the world, I'm not going to live in a bad neighborhood. People can be upset by that, and people can try and use that. Let me tell you, anywhere I'm going, I'm living in a nice, comfortable, safe, you want to call it a wealthy neighborhood, that's where I'm going to live. And that's exactly where I'm going to live in Bogota. I could live in an even more safe neighborhood. I could go up to the north and live in the gated communities. I don't. But I live in a nice part of Bogota, somewhat central in the north. And so I understand that other people have had issues. Their opinions are valid. Their experiences are valid. I'm going to tell you what I think I've done perhaps differently. Maybe some of it's just luck. I guess that's what all crime is. If you don't become a victim of crime, there's a certain element of luck there. But luck is where preparation meets opportunity. And the only time I've had an issue in Colombia is stupidly. You're walking in the street with your phone. I know they tell you not to do that. It's so hard when you're walking around just to not pull out the phone for a minute. I had a guy ride by on a motorcycle, and he literally had his hand on my phone. And then for some reason, he couldn't grab it or just didn't want, whatever reason, just drove off and then turned back to look if I was running after him or something. And I learned the lesson, hey, don't walk down the street with your phone. I've taken a number of our colleagues to Bogota. And if we ever walk around somewhere, I'm like, don't take out your phone. Like, it'll be fine. I've never had anything worse than that. But that's been the one experience that I've had. I still have the phone. If you go back to the 2010s, when I first visited there, I went on dates. I dated a couple of people that lived in Bogota. Never faced any issues there. I've walked around with no issues. I do try and be aware of my surroundings. I might not, be using headphones, especially if I'm walking around after dark. But again, for me, being in the right neighborhood, associating with good people, going to good places, being aware of what's happening, that is, a pretty good way to ensure that you're safe. And so we showed you a glimpse inside my life in Bogota with our recent video, Live Like a King, where we showed you some of the luxurious side of Bogota. People said that perhaps I even live in an alternate reality, but I live in the reality I've created, and I think that you can create that as well. I am not an advocate for any one particular place. I do not live full-time in Bogota. Again, the most I've spent there was, I think, about 4.5 months. Generally, I spend 1, 2, 3 weeks per year there. Now, you could say that actually makes it a bigger target because I'm much more active. I'm meeting more people. I'm going out to more places. When I spend, many months per year in one place, I spend more time just sitting at home. Harder to be a victim of violent crime sitting in your pied-à-terre, well above the street. In your condominium. But I'm pretty active when I'm there. And so we can all create our own reality. I know that many people who go to Colombia, they favor places like Medellin. I like the weather in Bogota. Especially as someone who spends time in places like Kuala Lumpur, where it's hot and humid. The more London vibes of the weather appeal to me. And I think it's more safe. And I'll come back to the stats in a minute. What was interesting on the Live Like a King video, which I definitely recommend you check out, was there were foreigners telling Colombians, saying how it wasn't safe. I'm sorry, but you sound to me like so many other Colombians with a complex about their own country who only highlight the negatives. Colombia has so many good things going for it in the culture, and I think that so much of the negative has been talked about, and people in many cases are still living in the Pablo Escobar times. My tailor, who is from Bogota, has lived overseas. He came to Nomad Capitalist Live a couple years ago, and he talked about when he was growing up, it was much more difficult. But he can see in the last 20 years how dramatically his city has changed. And I think some foreigners and maybe some locals kind of live in that era when it was dangerous. It wasn't in Colombia that I had someone put a gun in my face and try and take my wallet. That was in Nicaragua. And I think Central America statistically, and just the way I feel when I'm in those countries, is much more unsafe. You go to a capital city in a Central American country, with the exception of Panama City perhaps, you're not going to feel nearly as safe as you do in Bogota. I understand El Salvador has cleaned things up dramatically, but you go to Honduras, you go to Guatemala, you go to Nicaragua, you go to even the capital of Costa Rica, where I don't know why you'd go there. You'd fly there and then you'd drive somewhere nice, but those to me are much more dangerous. So my experiences speak for themselves. I've been there for 10 years. I'm not going out and meeting hookers. I'm not at crazy tourist bars at 2 a.m. Not saying that if you do those things, you deserve to be a victim of violent crime. But, I'm living a pretty simple life. And I think that's part of why I'm in the position that I've done, knock on wood. Statistics. We've talked in the past about homicide rates around the world. Colombia does have 6 of the top 50 cities. Bogota is not one of them. So not to say it's the safest city for violent crime or homicide. Asia, the Middle East, Eastern Europe are much better in terms of violent crime stats. But it is not in the top 50. It is one of the safest cities in Colombia. We can also look at studies by The Economist. Now, personal safety in Bogota is ranked at below average. However, and we've told you this for years, this is the same index that ranks watch thieving Barcelona above Dubai for safety, and that claims San Francisco is very safe. Just play the Tucker laugh. You can't even make some of this stuff up. I mean, to say that Washington, D.C. and San Francisco are very safe places, and Dubai, where like half a person gets offed every year, is not these statistics that you see. I mean, statistics are statistics. Murder rates, fine, that's the government's numbers. But The Economist coming around and saying, Bogota's not safe, but, please make sure not to step on the poop in San Francisco, or else maybe someone will come out and stab you. No, that's perfectly safe. I mean, you literally can't make it up. It is so, Western-centric. Let's go through your comments, though, on why you think Colombia is not safe. People have said, I'm going to get robbed. I told you the one story of how, and the guy one day at the phone, pretty simple solution, don't have your phone now. Now, hey, if you want to live in a city where you just walk around on your phone all the time, then yeah, I mean, a country like Colombia may not be the best place for you. And perhaps that's why I don't live there full time. I think it's a great base to have in South America. Our business is expanding in South America. I think there's potential, in that continent. There's a number of things that I just like about it. I haven't gotten robbed. So that was the experience that I've had. I felt more safe with my possessions just day to day in Bogota than I do in Spain. When I was in Barcelona for New Year's a couple years ago, I left my watch in the hotel safe. I didn't want to go around because we've had multiple clients that have told me that the gang of watch thieves just descended on them and summarily took off their watch and ran off with it. One Colombian said, you have to be very careful with your belongings. That's a big, big issue while walking, driving in general. Every time you are on the street, be careful. No doubt there's a greater level of caution that needs to be exercised. And so take this in the context of someone who, for multiple reasons, doesn't want to live in one place every single day of the year, doesn't need to, doesn't want to. If you're looking for a place to live every single day, Colombia is not a tax-friendly country if you live there full-time. It's not the worst of the OECD, but there's certainly far more tax-friendly countries to move from. If you are a successful person, I'm not sure Colombia is the place to live full-time. And perhaps the need to be a bit more cautious in Colombia or other Latin American countries would grate on you. But for me to be able to spend time there but not have the requirement to spend a lot, I can feel safe there. People asked, why do you need security? Well, a lot of successful people have security. I often don't. I do walk around without security. In the context of filming Live Like a King, people saw, okay, here's a guy who is the security. We are using expensive camera equipment. Now, would you need security in Dubai for that? Yeah, probably not. So I've never said that Bogota is the safest place in the world. There's a difference between saying you got a bunch of guys going around with expensive cameras and me just walking to lunch where you wouldn't necessarily need security. But obviously there's people who need security no matter where they go. I mean, I have security at Nomad Capitalist Live every year. Security doesn't mean someone's going to beat you up. It might just mean you need to make sure you can get through a crowd. But sure, if you're going to walk around with expensive cameras, I can think of better places than Bogota. I don't know about you. I don't walk to lunch carrying an expensive camera. Someone said that my car was armored. I don't think it was. We told people, the car service that we used, people in Latin America, I think, do often try and drive less ostentatious cars, although not so far from me. There was a Maserati dealership. Up until recently, I guess they weren't selling enough Maseratis. Again, people have armored cars everywhere in the world. Someone else said high-profile businesses have been assaulted by thieves in Bogota. This person perhaps doesn't understand what we're here to talk about. Bogota, for me, is a lifestyle hub. It's a place to go and spend time. It's a place to go and enjoy. It is a perch from which to see what's actually taking place, not only in that country, but in general South America. You get to go and meet people. I run a global business. I want to know what's going on in all corners of the world. We've made a bigger hiring push into Colombia recently. So those are local Colombians. They know how to handle themselves. As far as I know, they all do live in pretty safe neighborhoods. But we don't have an office that people come in and just, can break into. Even if they could break into it, they just find a couple people sitting on laptops doing office work. So I do know people who own businesses in Colombia, and they've been doing fine. So sure, maybe the risk there is higher. But if you're living the nomad capitalist lifestyle, you would not go and open an on-the-ground business in a place where there is that kind of risk. But you could go and live there and spend part of your time there. You could have a residence permit or own a home there as a backup plan. But that's the answer very simply to that. And so I understand there are people who've had bad experiences, and I'm not here to judge people who've had bad experiences. I'm here to tell you about my experience. My experience is as anecdotal and as valuable as anyone else's experience. And, for me, I think if you are, a party creature and you are single and you're going out meeting a lot of people, there is probably a higher risk in a place like Bogota. I do think Bogota statistically is safer than some of the other cities. So understand, if you go to Medellin, you are trading a bit of safety for what you perceive to be a better lifestyle. Perfectly happy for you to do that. Safety is not my number one criteria in terms of the stats, because again, I know I can build a safe life anywhere. But, that's my experience in Bogota. It may be for you, it may not be. And what we tell all of our clients all the time is, you have to judge the criteria that are important for you. Somebody might prioritize lifestyle above crime statistics and figure, as I do, hey, I'll just live in the right neighborhood. I won't associate with the wrong people. Other people, they want their kids to be able to walk around at midnight. And, that may not be the best place for you. Doesn't mean that you couldn't have a backup plan residence in Colombia, or you couldn't buy a property to go to as some kind of diversification plan. But that's my experience in Colombia. I'm happy to spend time there. I never worry about going there, and I never worry about having problems. But that comes from my personal lifestyle.